Greetings, everyone. How's everyone doing? It is Jerome Parker, aka Master Shake, and today, August 2nd, we are having a very interesting tech talk. But before we get started, I would like to remind everyone, if you haven't already hit the like button and the share button on this video, please go ahead and do it because we are going to talk deep. Before I get started, I'll remind everyone to please go ahead and follow me. If you're not following my website, you should. Head over to jeromeparker.com. There you can find my blog, my store, and links to everything that I do. You can also follow me on Twitter at MasterShake08. The same thing for Instagram at MasterShake08 and my Facebook page, facebook.com/JeromeParker. So, in case you have been living under a rock, you've heard that today Apple has made an historic landmark. They are the first American company and the first company period to reach a 1 trillion stock market valuation, or just valuation rather. For those of you who do not know, I am a former contractor from Apple. I was a senior engineer on the mobile apps team. And I was actually there when Apple broke the record for having the biggest quarterly earnings of any company ever in history. And I remember the energy there the day that happened. And I can only imagine what the energy was like today at the offices out in Sunnyvale and Cupertino. I have an article right here pulled up from Reuters that I'm going to read. The title simply says, Apple breaches $1 trillion stock market valuation by Noel Randwich. Apple Incorporated became the first $1 trillion publicly listed U.S. company on Thursday, crowning a decade-long rise fueled by its ubiquitous iPhone that transformed it from a niche player in personal computers into a global powerhouse spanning entertainment and communications. The tech stocks company jumped 2.9% to end the day at $207.39, giving it a market capitalization of $1.002 trillion. During that session, Apple's stock market value reached as much as $1.006 trillion. Apple has rallied about 9% since Tuesday. When it reported June quarter results above expectations and said it bought back $20 billion of its own shares. $20 billion of its own shares. It was Apple's best two-day run since April 2004. Started in the garage of co-founder Steve Jobs in 1976, Apple has pushed its revenue beyond the economic outputs of Portugal, New Zealand, and other countries. Along the way, it has changed how consumers connect with one another and how business conduct daily commerce. Apple's stock market value is greater than the combined capitalization of ExxonMobil, Procter & Gamble, and AT&T. It now accounts for 4% of the S&P 500. The Silicon Valley stalwart stock has surged more than 50,000% since its 1980 public initial offering, dwarfing the S&P 500's approximately 2,000% increase during the same almost 4 decades. I'm going to repeat that last sentence before I move on. The Silicon Valley stalwart stock has surged more than 50,000% since its 1980 initial public offering, dwarfing the S&P 500's approximately 2,000% increase during the almost same 4 decades. One of the three founders, Jobs, was driven out of Apple in the mid-1980s, only to return a decade later and rescue the computer company from near bankruptcy. He launched the iPhone in 2007, dropping computer from Apple's name and supercharging the cell phone industry, catching Microsoft Corp and Intel Corp, Samsung Electronics, and Nokia off guard. That put Apple on a path to overtake ExxonMobil in 2011 as the largest U.S. company by market value. During that time, Apple evolved from selling Mac personal computers to becoming an architect of the mobile revolution with a cult-like following. Jobs, who died in 2011, was succeeded as chief executive by Tim Cook, who has doubled the company's profits but struggled to develop a product to replicate the society-alerting success of the iPhone, which has seen sales taper off in recent years. In 2006, the year before the iPhone launch, Apple generated less than $20 billion in sales, and net profit was just shy of $2 billion. By last year, its sales had grown more than 11-fold to $229 billion, the fourth largest in the S&P 500 index. The net income had mushroomed at twice that rate to $48.4 billion, making it the most profitable publicly listed U.S. company. One more thing. Jeff Carbone, co-founder of Cornerstone Financial Partners in Charlotte, North Carolina, has included Apple in his client portfolios for about a decade. Recently, some of his older clients have bought Apple shares for their grandchildren. We still see the upside from it, and as new money gets deposited, we continue to buy, preferably on the dip, Carbone said. Apple stock had risen over 30% in the last year, fueled by optimism about the iPhone X, launched a decade after the original. Also preparing Apple higher in recent months was Apple's announcement that it earmarked $100 billion for a new share repurchase program. In its report on Tuesday, Apple's sales, led by the iPhone X, which sells for about $1,000, pushed quarterly results far beyond Wall Street targets, with subscriptions from App Store, Apple Music, and iCloud services bolstering business. An electronic screen. Oh, that's an image tag. The markets are starting to recognize the value of its platform and services more and more, and that's what is being reflected in the increase in market capitalization, said Brad Newman, director of market strategy at Alger, a growth equity asset management firm in New York City. Even with its $1 trillion stock market value, many analysts do not view Apple shares as expensive. Shares of Apple this week traded at about 15 times expected earnings, compared to Amazon at 82 times earnings and Microsoft at 25 times earnings. Adjusting for 4 stock splits over the years, Apple debuted on the stock market for the equivalent of 39 cents a share on December 12, 1980, compared to Thursday's high of $208.38. In 2015, Apple joined the Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of capitalism's most exclusive clubs. Since 1980, IBM, ExxonMobil, General Electric, and Microsoft have also alternated as the largest publicly listed U.S. company. In 2007, Chinese-growth-controlled PetroChina briefly reached the stock market valuation of $1.1 trillion following its public listing in Shanghai. Okay, so let me stop right there. It isn't the first in the world, it's just the first in the U.S. Following its public listing in Shanghai, it is now worth about $200 billion, according to Thomas Reuters data. One of 5 U.S. companies since the 1980s to take a turn as Wall Street's largest company by market capitalization, Apple could lose its lead to the likes of Alphabet Inc. or Amazon Incorporated if it does not find a major new product or service as global demand for smartphones loses steam. Hot on Apple's wheels is Amazon.com, the second largest listed U.S. company by market value, at around $880 billion, closely followed by Google owner Alphabet and by Microsoft. All right, so where do I start? Okay, so let's start with the fact that, as much as I'm about to go in on Apple, from a capitalist standpoint, congratulations. That is an achievement. Can't even hate on that. However, how they made that money, yeah, I got a problem with that. For those, I want people, because I don't want to be, I want people to be informed. I want you to search Foxconn. Okay, this is a company that Apple has a lot of contracts with, and look at their work conditions in China. There's a new Foxconn plant that's being built. I believe it's somewhere in Kentucky. Yeah, I believe it's in Kentucky. But I believe Mitch McConnell has something to do with it. But yeah, Foxconn is now bringing a factory over to the United States. But look at Foxconn. Look at how they go about assembling the phones and the work conditions there, and ask yourself, do you think that money was worth it? Go look. Let's take a step back. Let's look at the raw materials, almost all of which comes from Africa, and look at the conditions of the people who work in those mineral fields. A lot of these minerals are toxic to human touch in raw forms, unprocessed forms. Apple's moral practices are very questionable. However, a lot of global businesses' ethics are questionable. But that's not really what I want to talk about per se. It does tie in, but that's not the crux of what I want to talk about. Government is the shadow that is cast by business. What does that mean? That means that the business class are the ones who set the tone for diplomatic policy. The politicians execute, typically, but you look at like funding and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of that money comes from big businesses. So I get weary when I see a company like Apple reach $1 trillion, and then in the same instance are going across to other countries whose GDP. And by the way, I tweeted on my Twitter. I tweeted the list of countries by GDP, so you can get an understanding of how much $1 trillion is worth. They're going to countries like India. They're going to parts of Africa, et cetera, et cetera. And, they're setting up these, I guess, code camps, I guess would be the simplest way of describing them. But, they're working with the local governments, local and national governments in these areas. And like I said, when you have a company that's worth $1 trillion and they're going over to countries who desperately need that money, and you're packaging it as, hey, I'm teaching your populace how to code, I'm gonna help with startups, et cetera, because that's essentially what they're doing, right? So they're targeting kids, teaching them how to code, and then they're doing like startup grants, et cetera, to try to kickstart economies over here. But really what they're doing is they're just trying to train their workforce early, so that when they want to come over to America in the next 10 to 13 years, they can put them on an H-1B visa and underpay them, because that's what they do. But anywho, I've done videos on that in the past, so I'm not gonna spend time on that. But so they're going to these countries that desperately need the money for infrastructure, et cetera, and they can just throw money. Like, some of these countries only make like in the millions. Their GDP's in the millions or in the low billions. $1 trillion is $1 trillion is 1,000 billions. $1 billion is 1,000 millions, and a million is 1,000 thousands. Okay, so Put that in perspective. Now, let's go to the domestic side. We've seen with this past presidential election how influences, both foreign influences and domestic business influences, help shape the turnout of the election. And then, of course, we have midterm elections coming up in November. I was listening to NPR today, and they were talking about how Russia has already interfering with our midterm elections. That was actually going to be the focus of the Tech Talk today, but the Apple thing happened. So I'll probably speak on that next Thursday, or I might do a special video and just upload it later. I haven't decided yet. But anywho, I opine that this company, which has a lot of its money sitting offshore, by the way, too. I don't want you guys to think that they are sitting here with like $1 trillion cash in U.S. bank accounts. It's not. That's not how it is. The $1 trillion stock evaluation, how much cash they have, that's a different story. But I know that when I was in high school, graduating high school, they had enough cash that they could fill up square mileage wise the land mass of Madagascar, the square mileage of Madagascar with $1 bills. And that was back in like 2010. So I can only imagine what they have now. I don't even know. I can't even visualize $1 trillion, but I'm getting beside myself. So yeah, so I really do believe that Apple is probably going to be funding lobbyists. I mean, that's typically what they do. They get their political accomplishments done through lobbyists. It's not like Tim Cook is going to call whatever senator, what Kamala Harris or whoever, and be like, "Hey, I need you to push this bill." No, they're gonna get a lobbyist or go through a lobbying firm. But they can literally spend $1 billion on that, and it'd be 1,000th of their net worth. Of course, you wouldn't spend $1 billion. You would spend at most maybe a few million. But they can literally do this across the country, through each state. They can influence policy. That's how much money and power they have. Now, that's scary when you think about it, just one company, Apple, especially if you know their ethical and moral history. But the thing is, Amazon's going to be at $1 trillion soon, probably by next year. Maybe even sooner than next year. Google was also going to be up there. I mean, by this time next year, there's probably going to be 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 $1 trillion companies, with the vast majority of them being tech. Now, when you take that into account, it's not just one company that's got trillions. When you pull now these tech companies, a lot of them have similar interests as far as policy, right? Net neutrality. They want to be able to bring. They want less restrictions on importing foreign workers, H-1Bs or what have you. So you got one company's worth $1 trillion. Let's say, but let's just keep it simple. You got Apple, you got Amazon, you got Google, and they each got $1 trillion. That's $3 trillion. Just them alone can, fund and back whatever policy candidate, lobbyist, or whatever they want. That's what a cartel is. A cartel, I mean, when the word cartel gets thrown around, everyone just thinks drugs. But a cartel, by definition, is just when you have the competitors in any given industry, when they come together and pull the resources to totally cover the whole industry, and they work as one entity. That's what you're going to start seeing. I mean, you're already seeing it happening. They already do it. But just as having that much power, having that much influence and money, you're going to see it on a level that you've never seen it before. And another thing that is going to cause it's already causing an increase in hyper competition, because now having $1 million company isn't enough. You know, if you say, "Oh, I made $1 million," most people will look at you like, "Okay, I mean, that's a great. I mean, that's a great achievement." But a lot of people have $1 million. If you make $1 billion, more people are like, "Wow." But I mean, or if you have a company that makes $1 billion, you're like, "Wow, you're doing really good." People are looking up to you. You're on the cover of Forbes or what have you. But as more and more companies reach this $1 trillion mark, trillion is going to be the benchmark. That's what everybody is going to be. Like, you ain't going to be on Forbes unless your company's worth at least $500 billion. Like, that's just I think so. I think in the next 50 years, it's probably going to be over. It's going to probably be that way. So the article from Reuters brought up an interesting point in the fact that it said it probably is not going to hold that seat for very long, because their sales from iPhone and stuff are slipping, and this is why they're getting into autonomous cars and what have you, because they want to keep themselves relevant. But Amazon probably is going to be the company that takes the throne and stays on there for a foreseeable future. And I say that because Amazon has developed a monopoly on building monopolies. They just buy all of the competition. Crazy. Between Amazon Web Services, between the actual Amazon store, between them buying Whole Foods, them getting into health insurance, they're getting into drone technology. They're doing government military contracts, what have you. I think I'm 26, and I think by the time that I die, hopefully it's not until I'm like 100. I think they're gonna probably be like a $4 to $5 trillion company, and I'm gonna veer off a little bit, because this is gonna sound a little strange. You guys gonna think I'm a conspiracy theorist, but this actually makes a good analogy. Okay, so the Knights Templar, right? Some people say that the Friday the 13th execution order was written because the Knights Templar had amassed so much wealth that they were rivaling the wealth of kings. Okay, and that kings and stuff were indebted. Dukes and lords were in so much debt that they couldn't pay the Templars. I don't know how much of that is true or whatnot, but let's assume it is. So I do know that the Knights Templar did have a lot of political influence because they had a lot of money. Compare the Knights Templar in this scenario to Apple. So, like I said in the beginning of earlier in the video, there's a saying that goes, "Business is the shadow cast, or government is the shadow cast by business." So, while I believe that's true, I believe it's also a balance, right? Because at any given point in time, for whatever reason, whether it's good or not, government can also shut down business. Now, what I'm interested. I mean, not really interested because that would kind of be unnecessary. The consumers would probably feel the impact the most. But as Apple and the rest of these companies really looking to be the FANG company. Well, I don't think Netflix ever going to reach $1 trillion, but I think Facebook's worth like 300 billion. It's under 500 billion, but it's more than 100 billion. That's all I know. They're almost there, but all these companies are as they reach $1 trillion market caps or exceed $1 trillion market caps, and they get all this power. I'm interested to see how government is going to react to this. While my opinion is that I believe that as these companies get more influence and more wealth, that we'll probably see more liberal policy coming forth, especially definitely more tech friendly legislation coming forth. And don't be surprised if you start seeing at this point Apple reaching out and doing air quotes philanthropy. Start seeing Apple coding hubs or what have you in the area, because that all goes back to politics, right? If you have people, you're teaching them how to code. The name Apple is going to just stay on people's minds, and more than just the concept of their phone. So you get more power. And Apple is very, 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 very good about marketing and public relations. So don't be surprised if out of nowhere you start seeing candidates and stuff who are more tech friendly, which I think is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think that if it results in more tech friendly legislation, more open legislation, then I'm totally down for it. But yeah, don't be surprised if you just start hearing more rhetoric. If you live in an area that's not tech friendly, like me, I live in Kentucky. That'll be a direct result of political influence brought by money. I'm also interested to see, because another thing that these companies do, I brought up lobbyists, but a lot of these companies participate in PACs and super PACs and what have you. So I'm interested to see I'm really going to be paying attention to political ads, and seeing if I can notice if there's any influence in that. But that's my tech talk. I'm right under 30 minutes, so that was good. Let me see. There was another article that I had actually, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but I did want to bring up the market. It's getting lost in the Twitter feed. All right, I can't find it. But anyway, so I wanted to focus. I want to go back. I want to go back to the numbers a little bit. So it said that when its IPO came out, December 12th, 1980, it was roughly 39 cents a share. And basically over the past 4 decades, almost 4 decades, it has gone up 50,000%. And, you know, to traditional investors, that's great. But if someone, 50,000%. So if you put in $100, if you put in, let me do this math. Pull out a calculator real quick. If you put in $100 times, you'd be at $500,000. Okay, if you put in if you put in $200 back in 1980, you'd be a millionaire today. And just let it sit right at 50,000%. There's been plenty of cryptocurrencies that have done, numbers like that. So I say that to say, for people who are, obviously I wasn't even born then to buy in at that price, but some people might be listening who may have, missed a chance to invest. I don't own any Apple stocks anymore, but I did used to trade Apple stocks. I held them for a little bit and sold them when they went up. But there's other avenues to wealth like this, and cryptocurrency is our generation's. When I say our, millennials, older millennials, really, or rather younger millennials. This is our chance. So, be on the lookout for companies that are going to companies and projects that are going to make big changes, because you could easily invest and find the next company that's going to balloon and make you rich. Not even rich, and you're comfortable. It just depends on what your drive is. But that's my tech talk for tonight, guys. Once again, if you aren't following me, follow me on my website, jeromeparker.com. It's follow me on Twitter and Instagram at MasterShake08, and that's also my Snapchat. And follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Jerome Parker. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right hand corner. And if you haven't liked this video, please like and share this video. Leave comments below and let me know, what do you think about Apple reaching $1 trillion market cap? Do you think it's going to signify good things for our economy going forward? Do you think that that we're going to enter a realm of hyper competition? And if you do you think that that's going to be good or bad? Do you think that it's going to lead to more greed? Do you think that as more companies get more access to capital, they'll start doing things that maybe government isn't doing? That's it's also another side of things. Maybe the city's not fixing a pothole or whatever, and Apple starts coming in and fixing potholes. We don't know, but the idea that as companies get reserves of wealth that is rivaling governments, both local, national governments, it's interesting to see what these companies are going to do with this. So please drop your comments below. And this is another Tech Talk. I will see you guys on Monday. And I'm going to try to go back to the video game series. I have not had time to do any of the animation work on the model the Goku model that we got. But I'm gonna try to get something together. But if I can't, then what I will do is just do another video tutorial. I'll just do some more tutorials in the meantime. For example, I want to do a water generation tutorial for making realistic water with physics and waves and whatnot. So we'll probably play around with that if I do not get the animation stuff under the way. But until next time, guys, thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you later.